look at that. Another year where my Halloween list is turning into yet another dark topic for Christmas. Welcome to my channel. So let's just, oh. Yeah, the list is just gonna have to wait. So, in the never-ending game we're all playing called Things I Can Never See Coming a Mile Away, Scott Pilgrim the Anime! Here it is! Did not see this coming. I don't know how to process this. And many even argue over whether or not this is an anime, but I'm here to say it is! And we should definitely prepare ourselves to see even more Western content turning into anime just to feed into the never-ending consumerist hunger of streaming networks. But also, yeah, this has happened before, and it's not stopping anytime soon. Anyways, working alongside the original creator Brian Lee O'Malley, Netflix decided to create an anime based off of the original comic series, while also bringing back every single actor who starred in the 2010 live-action adaptation, Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. This was a huge deal for a lot of fans, especially me, since I love the movie. Here's my quirky Scott Pilgrim avatar from 13 years ago. I even used it as my Facebook profile picture. Don't judge me. But at the same time, Netflix's delivery on promising content has been good, bad, and horrendous to some extent. People were excited for this, but given Netflix's record, they were also skeptical. Very skeptical. But come on, it's a Scott Pilgrim anime made by the original creator himself. What could possibly go wrong? Hi, it's me again. Just before I go into the obvious insert plot twist here gag, just know that this is a major spoiler. I mean, I know it's been out for a while now, but if you haven't seen Scott Pilgrim Takes Off and have no idea what the shocking scene was in episode 1, you should definitely turn this video off right now and go watch it. I am basically gonna spoil a lot about this show just to give my thoughts on the overall reaction to the series. So yeah, major spoiler warnings ahead. You've been warned. Scott? What the hell just happened? Okay, before I go into whatever the hell that was, allow me to explain the plot that it was supposed to be. Scott Pilgrim lives a simple life in Toronto as a freeloader, mooching off everyone while thinking everything revolves around him. He's also in his early 20s dating a high school girl. Well, that's pretty bad. He goes to a party and finds the girl that was literally roller skating through his dreams, Ramona Flowers. He finds a way to ask her out on a date, and she accepts him as her new boyfriend, grabbing the attention of all of her evil exes, led by one of the most powerful figures in the entertainment industry, Gideon Graves. One by one, Scott must fight each of her exes in a duel in order to win Ramona's hand, each one being more difficult than the last. The movie ends with Scott defeating Gideon and walking away with Ramona, but apparently in this series, Scott just dies, and in the very first episode. So of course the details of episode 1 were spoiled to me, thank you Facebook and X, whatever the hell we're calling it, and of course when I heard all of this, I panicked. There were a few screaming outrage and bringing up the term bait and switch, because, as you could have guessed, Scott apparently loses the first fight and dies, leaving Ramona to take over the Scott Pilgrim show. And why, you may be asking, would the masses panic over this devastating plot twist which didn't really happen at all in the film? I mean, it's called Scott Pilgrim Takes Off, and we're starting off by getting rid of Scott Pilgrim. Wait, but it's not like Netflix has ever done anything like this before, now have they? You all knew where I was going with this. So Netflix released a continuation to the He-Man legacy called Masters of the Universe Revelations, and it starts off exactly like Scott Pilgrim. Prince Adam dies in the very first episode, but instead of the kingdom mourning for his loss and wondering what they're supposed to do now, Teela just takes over the entire show. She makes herself out to be the victim, turns her back to the kingdom, gets a brand new haircut no one has ever seen before, and she gets to save the universe while proving just how awesome and badass she was the entire time. And as you can see, the fans were a bit mixed on this. Masters of the Universe Revelations was indeed a bait and switch. Advertisements showed all of the awesome scenes with He-Man looking awesome as he's fighting Skeletor, only to kill him off in the very first episode and reveal that the show will be about Teela. Scott Pilgrim Takes Off did the exact same thing, with Scott being in all of the trailers, only for him to die in the first episode. With all of this in mind, is Scott Pilgrim Takes Off another bait and switch from Netflix? I mean, if you actually got past episode 1, you'd realize the answer is a flat out no. Look, soon after Scott is pronounced quote-unquote dead, Ramona does indeed become the main character, but the plot is still focused on how and why Scott quote-unquote died. It's revealed in the next episode that Scott didn't die, he's actually been kidnapped, with his kidnappers faking his death. So Ramona has to chase down her suspects, mainly her exes, and find out why someone would rig the fight to make Scott lose. And honestly, this turns into a genuinely good story that fits in perfectly within the world of Scott Pilgrim. The same spirit, humor, and thoughtfulness is in this series as it was in the comics and movie. Nothing's really changed, it's just an alternate twist and seeing what happens. If anything, Scott Pilgrim Takes Off is more of a meta commentary on Scott Pilgrim versus the world, and here's why. If you compare the comics to the movie, you would know just how rushed the ending technically was for Scott's arc. Scott was a lazy, self-absorbed, entitled asshole with major main character syndrome. And to any snarky Twitter fanatic claiming that we didn't know this entire time that Scott was an asshole, you're just an attention baiter, because obviously Scott is an asshole. That's the point of his character growth. Scott Pilgrim was more than just a coming-of-age story, it was a warning piece to anyone who lives their lives with entitlement and laziness like Scott. You can't just mooch off of other people and put in as little effort as possible into every little thing that you do while still believing that the world revolves around you. Oh my god, I sound like Julie.
They're called jobs, something a f***ball like you wouldn't know anything about.
The point I'm trying to make is, with how long the comics are, you see Scott not only growing as a mature adult, but realize he needs to earn people's love and respect, not just expect it. The movie can only do so much since it vaguely hints that Scott learns this in the end, but we don't really get to see Scott learn from his consequences or actions. Movie Scott doesn't have time to reflect on his actions and properly grow from his behavior. He just says and does the right thing and gets the girl. Scott Pilgrim Takes Off takes that thought and creates a world of what ifs. Like, what would Scott's life be if he had the movie ending instead of the comic ending? And we get to see that answer. Okay, look, I'm doing my best not to spoil the details here, but I just thought this meta commentary on the movie's ending was pretty interesting. As for Ramona, the movie just showed her as this different girl from out of town who's quirky and mysterious. There's not much to her other than her different hair colors and her past that Scott has to fight through. He defeats them all, accepts Ramona for who she is, and they walk off together. Again, there's more development in the comics than the movie, and there wasn't too much time dedicated to Ramona since the movie had to focus on Scott. While we see Scott coming to terms with his behavior, we don't really get to see Ramona reflect on her past or actions. She moved to Toronto to escape her past, unintentionally forcing Scott to fight her past in order for them to be together. There's no real reason why he has to do this, or any time to reflect on how Ramona feels about this. She's honestly more annoyed about the whole thing than anything. We get a gist of why she breaks up with him, but it makes her out to be more of an uncaring and cold person. Basically, if Scott is a selfish moocher realizing what an asshole he was to everyone, Ramona should see what her actions and behavior did to the 7 people who in some ways cared for her. Okay, maybe not all 7 of them because Gideon's a bit questionable, but you get what I mean. And wouldn't you know it, that's what the show did. Ramona's quest to find Scott and his kidnapper turns into a journey for Ramona to self-reflect and grow from her past. She can't easily run away anymore after she sees what damage she did to her exes. Okay, most of them. The plot moved along before we could confront the twins, but they do get some major plot points. And a robot. The robot's pretty cool and totally not sus at all. With every episode, Ramona confronts most of her exes in order to find Scott, but ends up coming to terms with her actions and behavior towards them. These weren't just evil exes trying to kill Scott to get Ramona back. These were people who in some way cared for Ramona, only for her to break their hearts out of sheer boredom or fear of commitment. This whole situation started because of her actions, and she unintentionally got Scott involved. The comics allow us to see Ramona reflect and grow from these encounters, but we never see this in the film. Movie Ramona shrugs it all off and doesn't really change throughout this whole conflict she technically started. So yeah, the show tried to correct this with a meta commentary that there was a lot more to Ramona than the movie attempted to show us. As for the exes, they each get their own time to grow and show more of their own characteristics. Again, these were more than just evil exes trying to get Ramona. But as the show tries to put Ramona in her own arc, it also asks one simple question.
Are you questioning my methods?
I'm not questioning them, I'm answering them. If we win, we don't get Ramona. I flawlessly defeated her precious little Scott, and she still turned me down.
Gasp.
Yeah, but Matthew's got a point here. Like, seriously, what do the exes get out of this deal? And sure enough, Gideon just straight up confesses that he was using each of the exes to his advantage, plotting a way to get rid of them and Scott so he could take Ramona back. Thus, we enter an alternative path where the exes rise up against this selfish scheme while also doing something we never expected from the Scott Pilgrim universe, and that is giving a selfish bastard like Gideon his own character arc. Kind of. The guy was a control freak in the comics and the movie, but somehow this show made us feel something towards him. Not sorry, we don't feel sorry for him, but kind of bad for him. Maybe. With his backstory and recent events showing who he is, we get a better understanding of his character, which somehow transforms him from a greedy and malicious bastard into an adorkable personality who's still an asshole. Just saying, I never thought that this friendship with him and Lucas could go anywhere, but it's so wholesome. Look at them. They're so precious. I love what I'm seeing here. Matthew gets an arc, Lucas gets an arc, Roxy gets an arc, Gideon, aka the Ghost Says Luz, gets more development. The twins are there. They have a point. It's better than nothing. They also have a robot. Did I mention that? They get a robot. And Todd! Oh, my sweet poor baby Todd. You deserve better than this. Oh, I never thought I'd feel so much for Todd Ingram, but oh my god. You poor baby. Oh, Wallace, why? Why'd you go and break him, Wallace? Why? Totally did not see this development coming a mile away, but if there was one character who could break any of these exes, of course it was Wallace. Wow, what a roller coaster. And once again, Wallace stole the entire show, like he always does. Love him or hate him, he's honestly the best character in all of Scott Pilgrim.
I heard they hired a notorious heterosexual to play me. Needed to see this debacle up close.
Yeah, I like to think that the show tried to acknowledge the fact that they did in fact hire a straight man to play Wallace, but no one is really complaining because Kieran Culkin was just made for the part, like he is too damn good. Because of his charming personality and his perfect delivery, he just steals the spotlight every time. No one can top this.
I decided the only thing better than being me was getting paid to be me. Why be Wallace Wells for free?
Okay, sorry if I just strayed away from the point I'm trying to make, but that's just the magic of Wallace. Stealing the attention. Because he's Wallace. Overall, I think some of us panicked before seeing the entire show for what it truly was. It's a meta commentary on how the characters would have evolved from the movie while also allowing us to get to know everyone else better. Ramona's true character is fleshed out more and we get to see her coming to terms with her past rather than running away. We get to know each of her exes better and genuinely like them as individuals. Sex Bob-ombs get more development, with Knives getting some well-deserved growth and independence. I love her, she's precious. And we get to see how movie Scott ended up in his future if we followed the logic and pacing of the movie rather than the comics. I'll admit, I was skeptical of this series because of the major spoilers from episode 1, but I blame that more on Netflix, the Tila show, and most modern adaptations trying to correct the past rather than creating original content. Scott Pilgrim Takes Off is an original product working off of the comics and movie while making its own unique experience. It was just released during a time of uncertainty. It's a time where most independent studios are creating more unique products than major studios, and those said major studios are notorious nowadays for taking nostalgic properties and putting their own modern twist to them, which has mostly led to their downfall. This series is definitely not the case, and I honestly enjoyed it. There was even one point where I thought they were gonna make this weird relationship happen, to which I just rolled my eyes at the very thought of it, but it led to the best joke in the whole show. I'm not even kidding. I am not gonna ruin that experience for you here. You just have to see it for yourself. I guarantee you, it is the best joke in the whole show. In the end, Scott Pilgrim Takes Off is not a bait and switch, and is genuinely an amazing show, accompanied by our favorite actors returning to reprise their roles, and animated beautifully by the anime studio Science Saru, the same studio that brought you My Animation Girls, Devil Bays, and the Star Wars anime. I totally forgot that existed. And as you can see and hear, this show was brilliantly put together. The animation is stunning, the acting is phenomenal, with Kieran Culkin once again being my favorite, and the overall story was interesting. Moral of the story is, just give things a chance before you jump to conclusions. I had to learn that myself with this show, and I'm not embarrassed to admit it. I got worried when I didn't have to. If you wanted more Scott Pilgrim content other than the comics, movies, and games, then you should seriously check out Scott Pilgrim Takes Off.
What? What the f?
And I'm a Nina Cotton Eye Joe. I've been waiting a long time ago. Where did she come from? Where did she go? Where did she come from? Cotton Eye Joe. See, I'm a one-man band. Nobody can stop me. I can just go out there, and if I have a song in my heart and a voice in my mouth, I can accomplish anything in my life.
Apparently, a 23-year-old dating a high schooler is frowned upon by society.
FBI, open up! I am hilarious, and you will quote everything I say.
How did that fit in there?
They're bigger on the inside.
Well, that's a problem. But not my fault. I did everything I could, and you did too. Also, why are you still here?
Choke me like you hate me, but you love me low-key. Wanna date me when you fuck me.
I'm the video game boy. I'm the one who wins.
But the tips are good, and I do get to look at his butt all day.
That is America's ass.
What about the sparks?
What sparks?
This service is depressing. Let's put the fun back in funeral. This is a funeral. Show some respect.
You know Sonic the Hedgehog? You probably know this, but in the early 90s, there were 2 different Sonic cartoons airing at the same time.
That's no good.
Huh? What are you doing? I won.
Yes. And?
You give stunts a bad name. This is tragic. You're also slow.
Emotional damage.
I lost. Wait a minute, I'm not supposed to lose. Let me see the script. Time for the real game to begin.
The goose is loose. Honk honk fuckers.
Okay, so the question I have for all of you is, was there an anime you assumed was going to be bad, but you gave it a chance and it surprised you? Let me know in the comments down below. This one definitely surprised me, but not in the way I wanted it to be. Like, I wanted something like this to happen. This was my dream. But I was just worried that it was in the hands of Netflix, considering how they treated Masters of the Universe. Well, anyways, I wanted to give a huge thank you to my Patreon supporters. What can I say? Times are tough nowadays, but I can still produce the videos that I want because of your amazing support and generosity. Thank you all so much for just being awesome patrons, and of course, thank you to everyone watching this video. More awesome videos will be on the way, so stay tuned to Anime America.